That check looks fake as hell. Probably printed it at home like all you people do. The words cut through Premier National Bank's afternoon quiet like broken glass. Brittany Coleman didn't even look up as she tore the $3,847 disability compensation check in half. The pieces fluttered onto the marble counter like wounded birds. Darius Washington stood motionless. His weathered hands, scarred from 3 tours in Afghanistan, remained steady on the counter's edge. Behind him, an elderly Asian woman gasped and fumbled for her phone. The security guard shifted his weight. Other customers craned their necks. Brittany's blonde highlights caught the fluorescent light as she crossed her arms, a satisfied smirk playing at her lips. "I'd like to speak with your manager," Darius said quietly. His voice carried the kind of calm that comes from surviving much worse than this. "Have you ever been judged by your appearance so harshly that someone destroyed your livelihood right in front of you?" What happened next unfolded in exactly 47 minutes. But Brittany had no idea she'd just made the biggest mistake of her career. Devin Harris strutted from the back office like he owned the place. His tie was loose, sleeves rolled up, the look of a man who solved problems with authority instead of thought. He glanced at the torn check, then at Darius, and his expression hardened. "Sir, we have protocols for suspicious documents." Devin's voice carried that particular blend of condescension and fake concern that middle managers perfect over years of practice. Darius kept his hands flat on the counter. "I'd like a corporate number and some tape to repair my check." Devin actually laughed. "Corporate won't waste time on situations like this." The words hung in the air like smoke. Behind Darius, Mrs. Chen, the elderly woman who'd gasped, quietly opened Facebook Live on her phone. Her finger hovered over the stream button. "Y'all need to see this discrimination happening right now," she whispered to her screen. Brittany tapped her manicured nails against the counter in an irritating rhythm. Tap, tap, tap. Like she was keeping time to Darius's humiliation. Her supervisor badge caught the light. Employee of the Month, March 2024. "Look," Devin said, spreading his legs wide and blocking Darius's path to the door. "I get that you're frustrated, but we can't just cash every piece of paper that walks through that door." Every piece of paper. Not every check. Every piece of paper. Mrs. Chen's stream title appeared on her phone. "Veteran being humiliated at Premier Bank." 47 viewers became 112. Comments began scrolling. "This is disgusting. Get his badge number. Record everything." Darius reached into his jacket, a movement that made Devin tense visibly, but he only pulled out a leather portfolio. Rich brown leather with gold corner reinforcements, the kind that costs more than most people spend on a car payment. The initials DW were embossed in gold script near the bottom corner. "There seems to be a misunderstanding," Darius said. His voice remained level, almost conversational. "This is a legitimate government check. I served 3 tours overseas." "Yeah, well, anyone can say that." Brittany's voice dripped with skepticism. "You got some ID that proves it?" Darius placed his military ID on the counter. Purple Heart recipient, Bronze Star, Combat Infantry badge. The plastic card gleamed under the fluorescent lights like a small shield. Devin barely glanced at it. IDs can be faked too. Behind them, the line was growing. A businessman in an expensive suit checked his Rolex with obvious irritation. A young mother bounced her crying baby, looking between her phone and the confrontation unfolding at the counter. Mrs. Chen's viewer count hit 312. The comments were getting heated. "Call the news. This is racial profiling. Someone get the manager." Darius's phone buzzed against his jacket. The text message was brief. "Board meeting moved to 4 p.m. Your call." He glanced at his watch, a sleek Omega Seamaster that caught the light when he moved. 3:04 p.m. His thumb hovered over the phone's screen for just a moment before he slipped it back into his pocket. "I understand you're just doing your job," Darius said to Devin, "but I need this situation resolved." And I understand you think you're entitled to special treatment. Devon's voice was getting louder, drawing more attention. But this is how banks operate in the real world. The real world. As if Darius hadn't spent enough time in the real world, dodging roadside bombs and watching friends die in foreign deserts. Brittany leaned forward, her voice carrying to the growing crowd. We see this all the time. People trying to cash fake checks using fake IDs. It's like they think we're stupid or something. They. Not criminals, not fraudsters. They. Mrs. Chen adjusted her phone angle to capture both Brittany and Devon clearly. Her stream had reached 543 viewers. The hashtag #PremierBankShame was starting to appear in the comments. Ma'am, Darius addressed Brittany directly, I'd appreciate it if you'd refrain from making assumptions about my character. I'm not making assumptions. I'm making observations. She gestured at his civilian clothes. Jeans, a plain t-shirt, work boots. You walk in here looking like you do with some suspicious check and expect us to just hand over thousands of dollars? Looking like you do. The words settled over the branch like a thick fog. The businessman in line pulled out his own phone and started recording. The young mother did the same. Within seconds, multiple angles were capturing every word, every gesture, every micro-expression. Darius's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. His hands, still flat on the counter, pressed down just a fraction harder. But his voice remained steady. 43 minutes remaining, he said quietly, more to himself than anyone else. Devon frowned. Remaining for what? Nothing that concerns you. Yet. The branch manager's office door opened with deliberate authority. Angela Torres emerged like a storm cloud, her heels clicking against marble in sharp staccato beats. Her power suit was pressed to military precision, her expression carved from stone. What's the situation here? Her voice cut through the murmur of onlookers. Devon straightened his tie, suddenly looking less confident. Ma'am, we have a potential fraud situation. This individual is attempting to cash what appears to be a counterfeit government check. Individual. Not customer. Not veteran. Individual. Mrs. Chen's live stream exploded to 1,847 viewers. Comments flooded the screen faster than she could read them. This is America in 2024. Where's the news? Someone call corporate. Torres circled Darius like a predator sizing up prey. Her eyes swept from his work boots to his plain t-shirt, lingering on the torn check pieces scattered across the counter. She picked up one of the fragments, examining it with theatrical suspicion. These government checks have very specific security features, she announced loudly enough for everyone to hear. Watermarks, special paper, microprinting. This, she held up the torn piece, doesn't feel right. The accusation hit Darius like a slap, but his expression remained unchanged. Around them, more customers had gathered. The afternoon banking rush was in full swing, but nobody was conducting business anymore. Everyone was watching the show. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the premises. The words landed like a physical blow. The businessman with the Rolex stepped closer, his phone camera capturing Torres's authoritative stance. A teenage girl near the ATM started her own TikTok live stream, whispering commentary to her followers. I'm not leaving until this is resolved properly, Darius said. Torres smiled, the kind of smile that never reaches the eyes. Then I'll have to call the police for trespassing. The threat hung in the air like tear gas. Mrs. Chen's phone trembled in her arthritic hands as she watched the scene unfold. Her stream had become a window into something ugly, something that happened in broad daylight in respectable places with marble floors and security cameras. Ma'am, an elderly black customer spoke up from the line. This doesn't seem right. The man's just trying to cash his check. Torres whirled on him. Sir, unless you're involved in this transaction, I'll ask you to mind your own business. The elderly man's wife tugged his sleeve, pulling him back. but their phones stayed up, recording everything. "Terrell," Torres called to the security guard, "please escort this gentleman out." Terrell Williams had worked in bank security for 12 years. He'd seen plenty of actual fraud, plenty of real criminals. This wasn't either. But his paycheck came from Premier National, not from his conscience. His radio crackled with routine chatter from other security guards across the city. Normal problems, normal days. This wasn't normal. He approached slowly, his hand resting on his radio. "Sir, you heard the manager." Now Darius was surrounded. Brittany blocked his path to the teller windows, her arms crossed triumphantly. Devin stood to his left, pulling out his phone to document what he probably thought would be a routine ejection. Torres positioned herself behind him, cutting off retreat. Terrell approached from the right, reluctant but compliant. Mrs. Chen's phone captured the perfect angle. 4 bank employees encircling one customer like wolves around a wounded deer. Her viewer count hit 3,200. The comments were becoming a digital riot. "This is racial profiling." "Where's corporate? Someone call the news." A mother with 2 young children hurried past, shielding their eyes from the confrontation. But even she slowed to film with her phone, adding another angle to the growing digital record. 38 minutes left, Darius murmured, checking his watch again. The Omega Seamaster gleamed under the fluorescent lights, a detail that several viewers noticed. Comments started appearing. "That's a 5K watch. Something's not right here. Why's he so calm?" "Left for what?" Torres demanded. "Are you threatening us?" "I'm simply noting the time." Brittany scoffed. "Probably got somewhere important to be. Like a job interview he'll never get." The cruelty in her voice made several customers visibly uncomfortable. The teenage TikTok streamer gasped audibly, forgetting to whisper. Her followers' comments exploded with outrage. The young mother in line stepped closer, her baby quiet now, sensing the tension. She held her phone high, recording everything. The businessman did the same. The elderly black couple, a college student with textbooks, a construction worker still in his hard hat. Multiple cameras, multiple angles, multiple witnesses to whatever was about to unfold. Torres pulled out her own phone. "I'm calling the police." "That's your choice," Darius said. His voice carried an odd note, not resignation, but something closer to anticipation. The branch had fallen into an eerie quiet. Even the usual sounds, keyboards clicking, phones ringing, the soft hum of air conditioning, seemed muted. The only sounds were the quiet murmur of live stream commentary and the distant hum of downtown Atlanta traffic. Everyone was watching. Everyone was recording. Devin tried to assert some authority. "Look, buddy, you're making this harder than it needs to be. Just walk away and nobody gets hurt." Nobody gets hurt. As if this was some kind of armed robbery instead of a man trying to cash his disability check. Darius turned his attention to Devin for the first time. "Who exactly do you think is going to get hurt here?" Something in his tone made Devin take a half step back. Brittany broke the tension with forced bravado. "Some people just don't understand how real banks operate." Darius turned to look at her directly for the first time since she'd torn his check. His eyes were calm, almost gentle. "You're absolutely right. Some people don't." The way he said it made Brittany take a step back. There was something in his expression, not anger, not frustration, but a kind of patient certainty that made her skin crawl. Mrs. Chen's viewer count had exploded past 4,000. The comments were a waterfall of outrage and speculation. "This is disgusting." "File complaints." "Share this everywhere." Local news accounts were starting to pick up the stream. #Premier Bank. Shame was trending citywide. Torres dialed 911, making sure everyone could see her doing it. "Yes, I need police at Premier National Bank on Peachtree Street. We have an individual refusing to leave our premises." An individual? Again. The word choice wasn't lost on anyone watching. "They'll be here in 10 minutes, she announced. as if expecting Darius to panic and flee. Instead, he opened his leather portfolio with deliberate precision. The movement was so controlled, so confident, that it made everyone pause. Even Torres stopped talking to watch. "Before they arrive," Darius said, "I think there's something you should see." He removed a single sheet of paper from the portfolio. Heavy stock, expensive, the kind of paper that important documents are printed on. He placed it face down on the counter without revealing its contents. The paper sat there like a loaded gun. 34 minutes, he said quietly, checking his watch one more time. This time, nobody asked what he meant. The paper lay on the counter between them like a challenge, waiting to transform everything. In the distance, police sirens began to wail. The paper lay on the counter like a sleeping serpent. Torres stared at it, her manicured fingers hovering inches above the expensive stock. Around them, the cameras kept rolling. Mrs. Chen's Facebook Live, the businessman's phone, the teenager's TikTok stream, half a dozen other devices capturing every moment. "What is that supposed to be?" Brittany demanded, her voice pitched higher than usual. "Why don't you find out?" Darius's tone was conversational, almost friendly. The silence in the branch had become oppressive. Even the usual background noise, the hum of computers, the whisper of air conditioning, the distant traffic from Peachtree Street, seemed muted, as if the building itself was holding its breath. Torres finally grasped the corner of the paper. Her hand trembled slightly as she flipped it over. The color drained from her face like water from a broken dam. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again without sound. The letterhead hit her like a physical blow. Premier National Bank Board of Directors. The official seal embossed in gold caught the fluorescent light, seeming to pulse with authority. This wasn't some printout from a home computer. This was the real thing, watermarked paper that cost more per sheet than Brittany made in an hour. Devon leaned over her shoulder to read. His reaction was immediate and physical. He stumbled backward, knocking into a promotional display for premium savings accounts. Brochures scattered across the marble floor like confetti, their cheerful promises of financial growth suddenly seeming obscene. "What?" Brittany snatched the paper from Torres's nerveless fingers. "What is this supposed to—" The words died in her throat like a strangled scream. There, in crisp black text that seemed to burn itself into her retinas. Darius Washington, Chief Risk Officer and Board Member. The silence stretched like a held breath. Mrs. Chen's live stream had hit 8,900 viewers. Comments exploded across her screen faster than she could track. "Holy shit! No way! Did y'all see that?" The digital crowd was losing its collective mind. Terrell removed his security cap, his hand moving automatically to attention position. 12 years of military service before his bank job. Some habits die hard. He recognized the bearing now, the quiet confidence that he'd mistaken for stubbornness. This was officer presence, command authority. The businessman with the Rolex whispered to his phone camera, "Ladies and gentlemen, we just witnessed the greatest plot twist in banking history." A woman near the ATM started laughing, not with humor, but with the shocked recognition of irony so perfect it seemed scripted. Her laughter was contagious, spreading through the crowd of customers like ripples in a pond. Torres found her voice first, though it came out as a croak. This can't be real." But even as she said it, she knew it was. The paper felt real. The embossing was real. The watermark was real. The growing horror in her stomach was definitely real. Darius reached into his jacket again. This time, nobody was tense. This time, they all just watched with the fascination of people witnessing a car accident in slow motion, horrified, but unable to look away. He produced a business card, thick stock, embossed lettering. Premier National Bank, Darius Washington, Chief Risk Officer. Below that, a phone number with a 404 area code and an email address that ended with @premiernational.com. "Feel free to call and verify," he said pleasantly. The casualness of the offer was somehow more devastating than any shout or threat could have been. Devon was the first to crack. "We had no idea... Sir, we had no idea you were..." "What? Black?" Darius's voice remained calm, but the word landed like a physical blow. "Or did you mean you had no idea I was someone who mattered?" The question hung in the air like smoke from a fire that was just beginning to burn. Around them, cameras captured every micro-expression, every uncomfortable shift, every moment of dawning horror on the faces of Torres, Devon, and Brittany. The teenage TikTok streamer's followers had grown to 12,000, her whispered commentary breathless with excitement and disbelief. A construction worker in line pulled off his hard hat and shook his head. "Damn," he muttered to his phone camera. "This is better than any movie." The college student with textbooks was frantically typing on her phone, probably posting to every social media platform she could access. Her fingers moved like lightning across the screen. Darius pulled out his phone, not frantically, not urgently, but with the measured calm of someone who had always known this moment would come. He dialed a number from memory, his movements precise and unhurried. The phone barely rang once before a crisp voice answered. "Patricia Wong, Regional Director." The name sent another wave of recognition through the bank employees. Patricia Wong wasn't just any regional director. She was the Patricia Wong, the woman who decided which branches stayed open and which ones got shuttered. Darius put the call on speaker. The sound echoed through the suddenly quiet branch like the voice of judgment itself. "Patricia, it's Darius. I'm standing in branch 447 on Peachtree Street." Even through the phone speaker, Wong's voice carried authority and genuine warmth. "Darius, how's the field research going? Getting good data on customer service protocols?" The words hit the bank employees like physical blows. Torres actually staggered, gripping the counter for support. Devon's face went ashen, sweat beading on his forehead despite the air conditioning. Brittany dropped into her chair as if her legs had given out completely. Field research, customer service protocols. The implications crashed over them like a tsunami. This wasn't random. This wasn't accidental. This was planned, orchestrated, designed. They hadn't just discriminated against a random customer. They discriminated against someone who was specifically studying discrimination. "Very enlightening," Darius said. "I think it's time to implement Protocol 7. A pause. When Wong spoke again, her voice was sharp, professional, deadly serious. "Confirmed. Implementing now. Do you need me on site?" "That would be helpful. And Patricia, bring the helicopter." "The helicopter?" "Because when you're a board member of a major bank, you don't sit in Atlanta traffic. You take the helicopter. ETA 12 minutes. The call ended. The branch remained frozen in tableau, employees paralyzed by the magnitude of their mistake, customers recording every second, the weight of realization settling over everyone like a heavy blanket. Mrs. Chen's viewer count had exploded past 15,000. The hashtag Premier Bank Twist was trending nationally. News outlets were picking up the story in real time. This wasn't just a local story anymore. This was going national, possibly international. The elderly black man who'd tried to defend Darius earlier stepped forward. "Young man," he said to Darius, "I want to shake your hand." They clasped hands briefly, a moment of solidarity captured by dozens of cameras. The man's wife was crying, not from sadness, but from a kind of fierce joy that justice was finally being served. Torres tried desperately to salvage something from the wreckage. "Mr. Washington, sir, we were just following protocol. We have to be careful about..." "About what?" Darius interrupted, his voice still calm but carrying an edge now. "About black veterans? About people who don't look like your usual customers? About individuals, that's the word you keep using. Individuals who don't meet your visual standards for financial credibility?" Each question was a scalpel cut, precise and devastating. The crowd of customers murmured approval, some actually applauding. Brittany found her voice, though it came out small and broken. We didn't know. You didn't know what? That I was somebody important? That I had power? Darius stepped closer to the counter, his presence suddenly filling the space like expanding gas. Or you didn't know that every person who walks through that door deserves basic human dignity, regardless of their title or bank balance? The truth of it was undeniable, devastating in its simplicity. The teenager's TikTok had hit 18,000 viewers. Comments were flooding in from across the country. This is everything. Justice served cold. Best plot twist ever. I'm literally crying. This man is a legend. Outside, the distinctive sound of helicopter rotors began to thrum in the distance. Customers pressed against the windows, phones still recording. The businessman was live streaming to his LinkedIn, narrating the scene like a sports commentator calling the game of the century. Devin tried desperately to climb back to higher ground. Sir, if we'd known who you were, that's exactly the problem, Darius cut him off. You treat people differently based on who you think they are. A black veteran with a government check is suspicious. A white businessman with the same check would be served coffee and offered investment advice. The accuracy of the statement was devastating. Several customers nodded, recognizing the truth from their own experiences. Torres's phone buzzed frantically. Text messages, missed calls, notifications. The corporate communications team was probably in full crisis mode. Stock prices were probably fluctuating. Emergency meetings were being called. A news van pulled up outside, then another. Reporters were literally running toward the building, cameras in hand. The story was spreading faster than wildfire, carried by thousands of live streams and social media posts. 23 minutes, Darius said, checking his watch again. This time they all knew what he meant. 23 minutes since Brittany had torn up his check. 23 minutes since they'd made the biggest mistake of their careers. 23 minutes since they'd created a viral moment that would follow them for the rest of their lives. The helicopter sound was getting louder, more distinct. Through the glass doors, they could see people on the sidewalk pointing up at the sky, their own phones out to capture the spectacle. Darius reached across the counter and carefully gathered the torn pieces of his check. I'll need some tape, he said pleasantly. This is still a legitimate government document, regardless of its current condition. Brittany fumbled for the tape dispenser with shaking hands. Her manicured nails, which had seemed so important an hour ago, now looked ridiculous, frivolous. Mrs. Chen's Facebook Live had become appointment viewing for anyone interested in justice, karma, or just a really good story. Her comment section was a digital celebration. This is what power looks like. Intelligence over violence. Best thing I've seen all year. Share this everywhere. The construction worker was explaining the situation to his own followers. Y'all, this man just played chess while they were playing checkers. This is how you handle discrimination with class. Through the glass doors, they could see Patricia Wong stepping out of a black SUV, flanked by two corporate executives in expensive suits. She moved with purpose, her expression grim. Behind her, the helicopter was settling onto the bank's parking lot, its rotors creating a rhythmic pulse that seemed to match the collective heartbeat of everyone in the branch. Showtime, Darius said quietly. But he wasn't talking to the bank employees. He was talking to the cameras. Patricia Wong entered Premier National Bank like a general taking command of a battlefield. Her Louboutin heels clicked against marble with military precision. Behind her, two executives in $1,000 suits flanked her movements, Corporate Communications Director James Liu and Legal Counsel Sarah Mitchell. The helicopter's rotors were still winding down outside, drawing crowds of onlookers who pressed against the windows with their phones. Mrs. Chen's live stream had exploded to 22,000 viewers. Premier Bank Meltdown was trending nationally. Mr. Washington, Wong's voice cut through the branch like a blade. I came as soon as you called. Torres, Devin, and Brittany stood frozen in a tableau of corporate terror. Terrell had positioned himself near the door, unsure whether to prevent people from entering or leaving. The air conditioning hummed with the only sound in the suddenly silent branch. Darius straightened his shoulders, his demeanor shifting from wronged customer to board member in an instant. The transformation was subtle but unmistakable. His posture changed. His voice carried new authority. His entire presence expanded to fill the space. Patricia, thank you for coming. I've been conducting field research on discrimination patterns in our southeastern branches. Wong's eyes swept the scene, the torn check pieces still scattered on the counter, the terrified employees, the crowd of recording customers. Her expression grew darker with each detail she absorbed. And what have you discovered? Significant systemic issues. Darius pulled out a tablet from his portfolio, swiping to reveal spreadsheets and data charts. The device was clearly high-end, corporate-issued, loaded with proprietary banking software that only board members could access. Over the past 8 months, I've documented discrimination incidents across 47 branches. The numbers appeared on his screen with devastating clarity, each statistic a nail in the coffin of Torres's career. African-American customer retention down 34% this quarter. Complaint ratios in southeastern branches are 3 times higher than national average. This location, branch 447, ranks worst in the region. Wong absorbed the data with professional efficiency, her trained eye recognizing the implications immediately. Legal exposure? $12.7 million in pending discrimination lawsuits. Federal banking violations under Regulation B, Equal Credit Opportunity Act, specifically Section 1002.4 regarding prohibited discriminatory practices. Potential FDIC sanctions under Section 8 of the Federal Deposit Insurance Act. The legal precision was surgical. Sarah Mitchell, the legal counsel, was frantically typing notes on her phone, already calculating defense strategies and settlement ranges. James Liu looked like he was calculating stock price impacts in real time, his face growing paler with each number. Torres found her voice, though it came out as a desperate whisper. We were just following standard fraud prevention protocols. Protocols? Darius's voice remained calm, but carried new authority that made even Wong pay closer attention. Let me read you Section 3.7 of the Premier National Employee Manual, the manual I helped revise last year. He scrolled to another screen, the official company letterhead visible at the top. Any employee who engages in discriminatory behavior toward customers based on race, ethnicity, military status, or perceived socioeconomic status shall face immediate termination without severance or benefits continuation. The words landed like individual stones in still water, creating ripples of realization throughout the branch. Several customers nodded grimly, recognizing the gravity of the situation. Devin stepped forward, sweat beading on his forehead despite the aggressive air conditioning. Sir, with all due respect, we had no way of knowing... Knowing what? That I was important? Darius's question hung in the air like a challenge. Devin Harris, employee ID 4471, hired 18 months ago. Promoted to assistant manager despite 3 customer complaints about attitude issues with minority customers. Devin's face went white. Wong was taking detailed notes on her phone, probably already drafting his termination letter. The complaints were from customers of different ethnicities, different economic backgrounds, but with one common thread. They were all non-white customers who felt disrespected during routine transactions. Darius swiped to another screen. Brittany Coleman, employee ID 7823. 2 prior incidents of discriminatory behavior documented in her file. 1 formal complaint from an elderly Hispanic woman regarding suspicious treatment of her Social Security check. Another from a young black father trying to open a college savings account for his daughter. Brittany's hands shook as she gripped her chair. The teenage TikTok streamer captured her reaction perfectly, whispering to her 25,000 followers, "She's about to get fired on live TV, y'all." Wong's expression grew glacial as she absorbed the pattern of behavior. This wasn't an isolated incident. This was systemic discrimination with documented history. Mr. Washington, what's your recommendation? 2 options. Darius's voice carried the weight of absolute authority, the kind that comes from genuine power rather than borrowed position. Immediate correctives action with full systemic reform, or I recommend this branch for permanent closure." The ultimatum echoed through the marble halls like a death sentence. Torres actually gasped audibly, her hand flying to her throat. "The numbers don't lie, Patricia. This branch processes 47 million monthly transactions. Average profit margin of 2.3% gives us roughly 1.08 million in monthly profit. But my veteran customer network alone represents 8.3 million in deposits." Wong was nodding, following the financial logic with practiced ease. "We've documented that viral discrimination incidents average $2.1 million in stock value loss within 48 hours. Current social media engagement suggests this incident will exceed that threshold significantly." Mrs. Chen's Facebook Live was now approaching 30,000 viewers. Local news trucks filled the parking lot like a media circus. The story was spreading internationally. #Bank Karma was trending in 12 countries. Wong turned to Torres with the precision of a scalpel. "Ms. Torres, explain to me how this situation occurred." Torres stammered, her voice cracking under pressure. The check looked suspicious. The customer didn't look like someone who would have a government check for that amount. "Stop!" Wong's voice was ice. "The customer didn't look like someone. Clarify that statement." The question exposed everything, laying bare the unconscious bias that had driven the entire confrontation. Torres's mouth opened and closed soundlessly, like a fish gasping for air. Darius intervened with devastating calm. "What she means, Patricia, is that I didn't look white enough, wealthy enough, or entitled enough to deserve basic customer service." The brutal honesty of the statement reverberated through the branch. Several customers applauded spontaneously. The construction worker shouted, "Tell it like it is, brother!" Wong pulled out her phone with the efficiency of someone accustomed to making life-changing decisions quickly. "James, draft immediate termination letters for employee IDs 7823 and 4471. Ms. Torres will be demoted to entry-level teller, effective immediately, pending completion of mandatory bias training." "Ma'am, please," Brittany began, her voice small and broken. "You tore up a board member's government check on live television," Wong said flatly. "You're lucky we're not pressing criminal charges for destruction of federal property under Title 18, Section 14401. The legal weight of that statement hit everyone simultaneously. Sarah Mitchell nodded grimly, already researching precedents on her phone. The crowd of customers murmured approval at the swift justice being delivered. "But this isn't just about punishment," Darius continued, his voice carrying the tone of someone who understood that real change required more than just consequences. "This is about transformation." He swiped to another screen on his tablet, revealing a comprehensive reform proposal. "I'm implementing the Dignity Protocol across all premier national branches. Every customer interaction will be recorded and reviewed by AI-powered analysis systems that flag discriminatory language patterns." Wong studied the proposal with the attention it deserved. "Timeline and budget? 60 days for full implementation. Estimated cost, $4.2 million. Monthly bias training mandatory for all customer-facing employees, conducted by third-party diversity consultants. Anonymous reporting app, Speak Up Premier, launches next week with direct escalation to board level." The businessman with the Rolex was live-streaming the entire exchange to his LinkedIn network, providing running commentary. "This is how corporate accountability should work. Real consequences, real systemic change, not just empty apologies." The corporate machinery moved with surgical precision. Within 30 minutes, Premier National Bank had transformed from a scene of discrimination into a masterclass in institutional accountability. Wong coordinated the immediate response with military efficiency. Security escorted Brittany and Devon from the premises, their employee badges surrendered, personal items hastily packed into cardboard boxes. The symbolism wasn't lost on the remaining crowd. Justice delivered swiftly and publicly. Torres stood pale and shaken near the customer service desk, clutching a folder containing her demotion paperwork. Her corner office keys had already been surrendered to Wong's assistant. "Ms. Torres," Wong addressed her with clinical detachment, "you'll report to our training facility Monday morning. mandatory bias education, customer service rehabilitation, and probationary supervision. Consider yourself fortunate. The teenage TikTok streamer captured Torres's nod of compliance, whispering to her 32,000 followers, "This is what accountability looks like in real time." Darius carefully placed his reconstructed check on the counter. The tape held the pieces together like scars, a visible reminder of what had transpired. "I'd like to make this deposit now." Wong personally processed the transaction, her fingers moving across Brittany's abandoned computer terminal with practiced efficiency. The deposit went through smoothly, $3,847 into Darius's account, the same transaction that had started this entire confrontation. "Mr. Washington, on behalf of Premier National Bank's Board of Directors, I formally apologize for this unconscionable treatment." The apology was captured by dozens of cameras, broadcast live to hundreds of thousands of viewers across multiple platforms. Mrs. Chen's Facebook Live had become the central hub for the story, her comment section flooded with reactions from around the world. "Apology accepted," Darius replied. "But apologies don't change systems. Action does." Wong nodded sharply. "The Dignity Protocol receives full board authorization. Implementation begins immediately." She turned to address the crowd of customers and cameras directly. "Premier National Bank commits to comprehensive reform. Every branch will install recording systems within 60 days. Monthly bias training becomes mandatory. Customer complaints will trigger immediate management review." James Liu stepped forward, his communications training evident in his measured tone. "We're establishing the Washington Standard, named after Mr. Washington, requiring that every customer receive identical treatment regardless of appearance, perceived wealth, or demographics." The name carried weight, honoring the man who'd exposed their failures while creating lasting change. Several customers applauded the gesture. Darius pulled out his tablet again, displaying detailed implementation charts. The anonymous reporting app launches next week. Customers can report discrimination incidents directly to corporate leadership. Every complaint receives board-level review. Sarah Mitchell, the legal counsel, added her piece. "We're partnering with the NAACP and Veterans Affairs to establish oversight committees. Third-party auditing every quarter. Full transparency in our diversity metrics." The construction worker raised his phone higher, streaming the announcements to his followers. "Y'all seeing this? This is how you create real change. Not just firing people, changing the whole damn system." Wong checked her watch. "Mr. Washington, the board meeting?" "Postponed. This was more important." His response carried the quiet authority of someone whose priorities aligned with justice rather than convenience. The crowd began to thin as the immediate drama concluded, but the cameras kept rolling. Mrs. Chen remained at her post, documenting every detail for her invested audience. A young black woman approached Darius hesitantly. "Sir? I work at the Wells Fargo down the street. We see this stuff happen all the time. Maybe other banks need to see what you did here." Darius smiled, the first genuine warmth he'd shown all afternoon. Change spreads when people demand it. Document everything. Share your stories. Make it impossible to ignore. The teenager with the TikTok stream nodded enthusiastically. "This is going viral everywhere. Dignity Protocol is trending worldwide." Wong was coordinating final details with her team, phone calls and messages flying as the corporate response machine reached full efficiency. Stock prices had actually risen 3%. Investors apparently approved of proactive accountability measures. An elderly veteran from the crowd stepped forward, his Vietnam War cap visible under the fluorescent lights. "Son, you did something important here today. You showed them we matter." They shook hands briefly, a moment of solidarity captured by multiple cameras. The gesture embodied everything the day had accomplished: respect, dignity, recognition. Wong addressed the remaining crowd one final time. "Premier National Bank failed today, but failure can become the foundation for better systems. We commit to earning back your trust through action, not words." The branch manager's position would remain vacant pending a nationwide search, with diversity and cultural sensitivity as primary qualifications. The entire southeastern region would undergo immediate review. Terrell, the security guard, approached Darius as the crowd dispersed. "Sir, I want to apologize. I should have spoken up." "You were in an impossible position," Darius replied. "But next time remember that doing the right matters more than following orders." The conversation was brief but meaningful, another example of the day's broader lessons about courage and conscience. As the news crews packed their equipment and the last customers completed their transactions, the branch settled into an unusual quiet. The marble floors gleamed under fluorescent lights, but the atmosphere had fundamentally changed. Wong shook Darius's hand formally. "The helicopter's waiting. Shall we return to headquarters?" In a moment, Darius surveyed the branch one final time, taking in the scene of transformation. "Patricia, make sure the recordings of today's events become mandatory viewing for all employees, not as punishment, but as education." She nodded approvingly. "Already arranged. This becomes our case study in how discrimination damages everyone: customers, employees, shareholders, society." The businessman with the Rolex approached them before leaving. "Mr. Washington, I'm sharing this story with my entire network. What you accomplished here today, this is leadership." As the branch returned to normal operations with temporary staff, the impact of the day's events continued rippling outward through social media, news coverage, and word of mouth. The torn check had been deposited successfully. The discriminatory employees had faced consequences. The system itself was being rebuilt. Intelligence had triumphed over ignorance. Preparation had defeated prejudice. And quiet power had achieved more than any lawsuit could have accomplished. Segment 7. Aftermath and CTA. 6 months later, the transformation was undeniable. Mrs. Chen's Facebook Live video had reached 2.3 million views, becoming a viral touchstone for discussions about discrimination, dignity, and systemic change. Her simple act of documenting injustice had sparked a national conversation that extended far beyond banking. The #Dignity protocol had been adopted by 12 major financial institutions across the country. What began as Premier National's crisis response had evolved into an industry standard, proving that one person's courage could create waves of institutional transformation. Darius became the keynote speaker at the National Banking Diversity Summit, where he shared the stage with civil rights leaders and corporate executives. His message remained consistent: intelligence and preparation defeat ignorance and assumptions every time. The Harvard Business School case study titled "The Washington Incident: From Crisis to Cultural Change" was required reading for MBA students studying corporate responsibility and crisis management. The story has become a teaching tool for understanding how individual actions can drive systemic reform. Premier National's discrimination complaints dropped 78% in the following quarters. Customer satisfaction scores reached all-time highs. Stock prices stabilized at 15% above pre-incident levels as investors recognized the value of proactive accountability measures. Branch 447 on Peachtree Street became an unlikely pilgrimage site. Customers specifically requested to conduct business there, wanting to experience the location where quiet power had defeated loud prejudice. The branch consistently ranked among the top performers in customer service metrics. Brittany Coleman's termination became part of Premier National's training curriculum, not as humiliation, but as illustration of how unconscious bias destroys careers and communities. Her story served as a cautionary tale for employees across the banking industry. The Speak Up Premier app processed over 15,000 reports in its first year, leading to corrective actions, additional training, and systematic improvements. The anonymous reporting system had become a model for other corporations seeking to address discrimination proactively. Torres completed her bias training and gradually worked her way back into management, becoming an advocate for inclusive banking practices. Her transformation from antagonist to ally demonstrated that redemption was possible through genuine commitment to change. The teenager's TikTok compilation of the incident earned her a scholarship to study journalism at Spelman College. She credited Darius with showing her how to fight smart instead of just fighting angry, a lesson that shaped her approach to social justice reporting. Mrs. Chen was invited to speak at banking conferences about the power of citizen journalism. Her willingness to document discrimination had created accountability where traditional oversight had failed. These real-life stories became part of a broader narrative about how touching stories of individual courage could create institutional transformation. The incident proved that Black stories mattered, that they could change systems, that one person's refusal to accept discrimination could benefit everyone. The construction worker who'd live-streamed commentary became a local celebrity, his "This man played chess while they played checkers" quote appearing on motivational posters and social media memes worldwide. Veterans organizations nationwide adopted Darius's approach as a model for addressing discrimination. Document everything, prepare thoroughly, respond strategically. His methods became part of advocacy training programs. The legal precedent established by Premier National's voluntary reforms influenced federal banking regulations. The Washington Standard was written into policy recommendations for financial institutions nationwide. But perhaps most importantly, the story had entered the collective consciousness as proof that change was possible. In barbershops and coffee shops, in college classrooms and corporate boardrooms, people shared the video and discussed its implications. The viral moment had become a movement. Have you witnessed discrimination like this? Have you experienced that moment when someone judged your worth by your appearance, your clothes, your skin color, your accent? Your story matters. Your voice has power. Your experiences can create change. Share your story in the comments below. Tell us about the times you were underestimated, overlooked, or dismissed. But also tell us about the moments you stood up, spoke out, or simply refused to accept less than you deserved. Record injustice when you see it. Your phone camera can become a tool for accountability. Your social media platforms can amplify voices that need to be heard. Every view, every share, every comment helps create the pressure that transforms institutions. Subscribe to the Black Voices Speak channel for more stories of quiet power defeating loud prejudice. Hit that notification bell because the next story of transformation might be yours. We share life stories that inspire, real-life stories that matter, touching stories that change hearts and minds. Remember what Darius Washington proved that day? You never know who you're underestimating. That person you're judging might just be the one with the power to change everything. But more importantly, that person might be you. Intelligence is power. Preparation is strength. Dignity is victory. Your story is waiting to be told.